Good morning, everyone. Miss Carol here again. Looking forward to continuing our story of the Israelites. Now, you know, they finally left Mount Sinai, didn't we? When we talked last week, they were finally leaving Mount Sinai. And they had that formation that God wanted them to march in, right? And who went first? Well, the Kohathites went first, those Levites that carried the Ark of the Covenant. So they go first, don't they? They lead the way. And the cloud of the Lord goes up, the presence of the Lord goes up from that ark and guides them. The cloud by day, the pillar of fire by night, right? And they head forward to that promised land they're so excited about, finally. And we talked about how each of the 12 tribes had their own banner. And we said, who knows, but maybe Judah's banner had a lion on it. We don't know, but each one had their own banner, and they held those banners high as they went forth into the desert toward the promised land. And that would be exciting, wouldn't it, to have seen that? Can you imagine 2 million people marching in a desert? And it just had to have been amazing, didn't it? All right, so they went 3 days into the wilderness of Paran. And that's not too far, that's not too long, right? They're getting closer to that promised land. And we read in Numbers 11, starting with verse 4. Now, it's been 3 days, and they have stopped. The troublemakers among the Israelites began to want other food. And again, the Israelites started crying and wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. What? Wait a minute. You ate fish at no cost in Egypt? I think you better remember a little better than that. You were slaves. You were beaten every day to make those bricks for the Pharaoh. Your newborn sons had been tossed into the river to die. And you say you ate fish at no cost? Oh, how quickly they forgot, didn't they? We ate fish at no cost. Also, we had cucumbers and melons and leeks and onions and garlic. But now we've lost our appetite. All we ever see is this manna. Wow. Now you remember, they hadn't been gone from Egypt even a month till they started complaining the first time, didn't they? That they wish they were back in Egypt. And so that one night, God said, I will send quail. So he sent quail, which are small birds, to them, didn't he? And they ate that night. But from that next morning on, God said, I'm going to give you bread every day. Bread from heaven. It's going to be like dew on the ground. It's going to be there. You pick it up and you can cook it. All right. So that was manna. And now they're complaining that they're eating the bread of heaven and they're getting tired of it. And Moses heard the people of every family crying and wailing and complaining, each at the entrance to his own tent. And the Lord became very, very angry, and Moses was troubled. He said, where, Lord, can I get meat for all these people? They keep crying to me, give us meat to eat. Now this is making God angry, isn't it? Because God has provided for them from the very beginning, hasn't he? He's provided for them. And he's not going to let them starve, is he? So, let's continue reading in Numbers. And the Lord said to Moses, tell the people, consecrate yourselves, be ready for tomorrow, and you will eat meat. Tell them the Lord heard you when you cried. If only we had meat to eat. We were better off in Egypt. So now the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat it. And you will not eat it for just 1 day, or 2 days, or 5 or 10 or 20 days. but you're going to eat it for a whole month until you're sick of it. You hate this to even think of it. It's going to come out your noses and you're just going to hate the sight of it. And that's because you have rejected me. You have turned your backs on me after all I've done for you. And that's will pay you back for saying to me, why did we ever leave Egypt? Let's just think, why in the world are they getting so impatient right now? After all, they're almost to the promised land. They are almost to Canaan. And now they're going to suddenly say, we want to go back to Egypt. We had food there. What is wrong with them? They know that when they get to Canaan, they've been promised a land filled with milk and honey, a beautiful land. And they can't be patient just a little while longer. They waited a year. They can wait a few days longer, can't they? Oh, I'm just so upset with them. Aren't you upset with them? Yeah, who would do such a thing? Well, wait a minute. Do we ever do that to God? God gives us blessings every day, doesn't He? He makes sure that He gives us sunshine and rain. He gives us a home to live in. He gives us food to eat. He takes good care of us. But are we ever not happy with what we have? Do we ever want something different? Oh, you made meatloaf tonight. I don't like meatloaf. I like chicken nuggets. Oh, I know I have this bike, but it's old and my friend got a brand new bike. Can't I have a brand new bike? I need a brand new bike. They got a brand new game. Can I have a brand new game? I'm tired of this old game. And you know what? It's not just kids that do it. Us grown-ups do it too. We go around thinking, well, here I sit with all my old furniture, and my friend, she got all new furniture. In fact, she got a brand new house, and I'm in this old house. It needs all its paint, and my car, it's old. I wish I had a new car, and we're being ungrateful, aren't we? Because after all, we know this world is not our home, is it? Our treasures should be laid up in heaven, because if we're faithful, that's going to be our home someday. And it's going to be better than we could ever imagine. So why are we getting all upset now when we just need to be satisfied here with what we have and look forward to the best thing ever, which is our promised land, and that's heaven, right? So I guess really we're not any better than the Israelites, are we? We're not any better than them. So let's keep reading. Find out what happens. But Moses said to God, here I am among 600,000 men on foot, and that doesn't include all the women and all the children. We said probably 2 million people. Moses said, would they even have enough to eat if we killed all our flocks, all our herds? And would they even have enough if all the fish in the sea were caught for them? And the Lord answered Moses, is the Lord's arm too short, Moses? In other words, Moses, do you think there's anything that I cannot do? You will see now whether or not what I say will come true for you. So Moses went out and told the people what the Lord had said. Get together, because tomorrow you will eat meat. And so a wind went out from the Lord and sent quail in from the sea. All that day and all the next day, they came down all around the camp to about 3 feet above the ground, as far as a day's walk in any direction. And all day and all night the next day, people went out and they gathered up the quail. All right, so they didn't even have to go hunt for it. It just came right to them. And you talk about a miracle. That was definitely a miracle, wasn't it? That's right. And it says that each family gathered about 10 homers, and let me see if I get that right. And that meant that really and truly, this is what they gathered. They gathered about 60 of these right here, full of quail. That's a lot of quail, isn't it? That's a whole lot. And how long was it supposed to last them? It was supposed to last them a month, wasn't it? So it says that while the meat, they spread them out all over the camp because they were gonna salt them and preserve them so they could eat them a while. But here's what happened. While the meat was still between their teeth, in other words, while they were still eating it, and before they could even swallow it, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. In other words, they were so greedy, and they took so much, and then they just couldn't wait to eat it. And it just made God so mad, didn't it? Because they were so unhappy and ungrateful for what he had given them. And so he caused a plague to come over some of the people, and they died because they had wanted food other than the bread from heaven. So from there, the people traveled to Hazeroth, and they stayed there. And while they're there, something exciting is finally going to happen to them. And let's just read. We're going to start in Numbers 13. So the Lord said to Moses, "Send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each of the 12 tribes send one of its leaders." So at the Lord's command, Moses sent them out from the desert of Paran. And those leaders were probably the strongest and the bravest from that group. And the only 2 men that we know from this list of 12 men would have been Joshua. We've heard of Joshua. He was Moses' helper, wasn't he? And Caleb. And we hear about Caleb. And so when Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, "Go up through the Negev and on into the hill country. See what the land is like and whether the people who live there are strong or weak. Are there few of them? Are there many of them? What kind of land do they live in? Is it good land or bad land? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they walled towns? Do they have walls around them? Do they have armies guarding them? How is the soil? Is it good for planting? Are there trees in it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land, because it was the season for the first ripe grapes." So they went up and explored the land from the desert of Sin all the way to Rehob. Now, let's think about this. So Moses is sending 12 men, one from each tribe, and they're going to go up and explore, and they're the strongest men, right? And we call them spies, and you know what a spy is? And we call them spies because these are their enemies they're going in to spy on. They're going to become their enemies, right? Because they're about to take over their land, aren't they? So they don't want anybody to know what they're doing. So they're going to spy. What does it mean to spy? Well, it kind of means to sneak around, doesn't it? To see what's going on without anybody knowing what you're doing. Today, we might use binoculars, right? We might use our binoculars to sneak around and spy on somebody. But they wouldn't have been able to do that. But they did sneak around, all right? So they wanted to see exactly what was there. And we know that if the grapes were ripe by then, it was probably around July. So they had been traveling several months now from Sinai. And it was probably in July because that's when the grapes were usually ripe. All right, so they go to different places. They went up through the Negev, just like Moses said, and they came to Hebron. And we've heard of Hebron before, and that happens to be where God made all his promises to Abraham all those years ago. And he told him, your descendants are going to be like the sand on the seashore and the stars in the heaven, too many to even count. Well, all these Israelites are Moses' children. Are Abraham's children, aren't they? And that's exactly what's happened. There's several million of them now. There's just too many to even count. So God's promise to Abraham came true, didn't it? That's right. And so they reached the valley of Eshcol, and they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. 2 of them had to carry it on a pole between them. And they brought along some pomegranates and figs. And they also went into the land where the Anakites lived. And the Anakites were people like Goliath. Do you remember the story of Goliath? He was about 9 feet tall. And we would consider them a giant, wouldn't we? And so they also went up and saw the Anakites as well. And at the end of 40 days, they returned from exploring the land. All right, so Moses sends out the 12, and he gives them their instructions. Go check out everything. Remember, check out the land. Check out, does it have trees? What about the cities there? And do they have armies? And what about the food? Bring some of the food back. And so that's exactly what they do. And can you imagine, after 40 days, it's a little over a month, they come back from their journey. And here's all the food those people were looking for earlier. They were missing all this. And now look, they brought grapes, pomegranates, and figs, all kinds of good things. That had to have been exciting to see that God really meant it when he said he was giving them a land flowing with milk and honey, the land of Canaan. And so the Bible says, they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. And there they reported to them and to the whole assembly. All right, so there they are. They brought their things back with them. And so they gave Moses this account. We went into the land where you sent us, and it's true. It does flow with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there, they are powerful. And the cities are fortified, and they're very large with walls and armies. We even saw the descendants of the Anakites there. They live in the Negev, those giants. And the Amalekites live in the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites live in the hill country. And the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Doesn't sound like they're getting the people excited to go somewhere, does it? And Caleb silenced the people. He said, be quiet, be quiet. We should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack these people. They're stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land where they had explored. And they said, this land we explored, well, it would eat us alive. Those people living in it, they're of great size. And we saw the Nephilim there and the Anakites. Well, we seemed like we were just grasshoppers to them. And we know we looked like grasshoppers. Oh, boy. Well, that's not what Moses expected, was it? He expected them to come back with all the excitement of, we're finally here. We finally come to this promised land. This is wonderful. You know what? God said, the Bible says in Numbers 1, that night, all of the people of the whole Israelite community raised their voices and cried aloud. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said to them, "Oh, if only we had just died in Egypt, or maybe died in this desert. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land, only to let us die by the sword? Our wives and our children will be taken as captives. Wouldn't it be better for us to just go back to Egypt?" Oh my goodness. And they said to each other, "We should choose a leader and go back to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered there. And Joshua and Caleb, who were among those who had explored the land, tore their clothes. Remember, people in Bible times did that to show how sorrowful they were, how upset they were. And they said, "The land that we passed through and explored is exceedingly good. It's so good. If the Lord's pleased with us, He's going to lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And He's going to give that land to us. Only don't rebel against the Lord, and don't be afraid of the people of the land, because we will swallow them up. Their protection is gone, but the Lord God is with us. Do not be afraid of them." But the whole assembly talked about stoning Joshua and Caleb and killing them. Can you imagine? Wow. Let's just think about everything that's happened to them since they've left Egypt. All the miracles God did. What all did He do? I mean, the 10 plagues, the parting of the Red Sea, the cloud by day, the fire at night. When they needed water, He gave them water from a rock. The other time when they wanted meat, He gave them quail for a night. He's feeding them bread of heaven, that manna, every day, and has been since they left Egypt. How quickly they're forgetting. And I wonder what God's thinking about this. Well, let's just read and see. Then the glory of the Lord appeared at the tabernacle to the Israelites. And the Lord said to Moses, "How long will these people treat me this way? How long will they refuse to believe me in spite of all the miracles I have done and I have performed among them? I'm going to strike them all down with a plague and destroy them. But Moses, I'm going to make you into a nation. Then they're going to be stronger and better than them." He's offered to do that before, didn't He? When they made the idol, the golden calf. God was wanting to destroy all of them then and make Moses into a nation. But Moses, the Bible says, was the most humble man in all the earth. And Moses bows before God. He says, no, God, don't do that. Everyone is watching. All the nations are watching. What do they say if you destroy your people? You brought them out of Egypt only to destroy them here in the desert. Now may the Lord's strength be displayed just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to get angry, and you abound in love, and you forgive sins and rebellion. Yet I know you don't leave the guilty unpunished. And the Lord replied to Moses, "All right, Moses, I have forgiven them as you have asked. Nevertheless, as surely as I live, and as surely as my glory fills the whole earth, not one of the men who saw my glory and the miraculous signs I performed in Egypt and all the miracles in the desert, but these men who disobeyed me over and over, not one of them is going to see the land that I promised to their fathers, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. No one who has treated me with contempt will ever see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and follows me with all his heart, I will bring him into the land he went to, and his descendants will inherit it. Now, since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, we'll turn back away tomorrow and head back toward the Red Sea along the desert. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, how long will this wicked community continue to grumble and complain? I tell you the truth. In this desert, they will die. Their bodies will die here. Everyone who is 20 years old or older, they will die here in this land. No one except Caleb and Joshua will get to see the promised land. And as for your children that you said would be taken as captives, I will make them enjoy the land. They will get to go into the land. But you will die in this desert. Your children will have to be shepherds here for 40 years, suffering for your unfaithfulness until the last of you dies in this desert. For 40 years, you're going to have to wander in this desert. For 40 years. That is, we have a visitor, don't we? That is 1 year, for every day you spied out the land. You were there for 40 years. And so, for 40 days, and now for 40 years, you're going to be stuck in this desert, and you're going to die here. So the men Moses had sent to explore the land, who returned and made the whole community grumble against him by spreading a bad report about it. Those men responsible for spreading the bad report about the land were struck down and died of a plague before the Lord. Of the men who went to explore the land, only Joshua and Caleb survived. And when Moses reported this to all the Israelites, they cried bitterly, and early the next morning they got together with their swords, the men did. And they said, we know we have sinned against God, so we're going to go up to the place the Lord promised us. And Moses said, whoa, why are you disobeying the Lord's command? You will not succeed in this. Do not go up there, because the Lord will not be with you if you go. You will be defeated by your enemies. For the Amalekites and Canaanites will face you there, but because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you, and you will die by the sword. But nevertheless, they went on up there anyway. They went up to the high hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the Lord went with them. And the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in that hill country came down and attacked them and beat them all the way back. Have you ever been punished by your parents and you thought, oh, I'm going to do what they told me to do now. Now I'm going to do it. And they already told you were going to be punished because you didn't. But no, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it now. And it was too late, wasn't it? And that's how they're being. It was too late. They decided to obey God, but God said, no, it's too late now. You had your chance. Now think, they've already come all the way from Egypt and traveled and crossed the Red Sea. And they're all the way up here where they went into Canaan. It's right there. This is the promised land. But they were afraid, and they said, no, we couldn't win if we tried. And so they were killed by going up into the hill country. And because of that now, they've got to turn back around and go back down to the Red Sea and wander all in this desert. For how long? 40 years. 1 year for every day, the 40 days that they spied in the promised land. Well, not a good way to end. But let's see what happens as they're in the desert. I love you all. I'll see you next week. Be the best you can be. Bye-bye.